Hey everyone, we know how hard it can be to keep up with the latest news in Israel, so if you haven't had the time to stay on top of what's what in the Holy Land with ILTV, have no worries. It's time for our show, ILTV's Weekly Review, where we'll give you the scoop on everything you need to know about the last 7 days right here from Tel Aviv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, here to keep you informed. We start the show with some breaking news. Earlier this afternoon, an 18-year-old Palestinian Arab terrorist stabbed 4 Israelis in the heart of North Tel Aviv, wounding them lightly. The 3 men and 1 woman, who range in age from 50 to 70, were treated on the scene by Magen David Adom paramedics. Police have taken the terror suspect into custody, where he not only admitted to the crimes, but also said that the stabbings were nationalistically motivated. It looks like May is going to be a momentous month for Jerusalem because U.S. President Donald Trump is coming to town, and he may have quite a few surprises in store. Even though the exact date is not official yet, Israel's foreign ministry says the official state trip is now in the advanced stages of scheduling. The stopover may be part of Trump's first foreign relations trip since taking office. He'll be in Belgium on May 25th and could come to Israel right after. That means he could arrive in time for the 50th anniversary celebrations of the reunification of Jerusalem beginning on May 23rd. Optimists hope that the timing indicates presidential plans to officially recognize the Holy City as Israel's capital. It's also worth noting that the last waiver postponing congressional calls to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem expires at the end of this May. Every sitting president has signed a 6-month delay putting off the relocation since the law was passed in 1995. Anticipation is already building because a prospective visit is part of a series of many unprecedented events. Trump has never been in Israel before, and no president has ever visited so early in his term. Further, the first foreign leader he hosted right after being inaugurated was Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So May could be one of the most exciting months in the history of the Jewish state. You'll just have to stay tuned at ILTV.tv to find out. Seemingly true to his word, U.S. President Donald Trump is indeed putting America first when it comes to his administration's foreign aid budget. But it looks like there is one organization right here in the Middle East that isn't actually being affected. ILTV's Aaron Porras has more on the story. Aaron, what is the news out of Washington?
Well, basically, a proposed foreign aid budget was leaked from the White House, and it basically either severely reduces or entirely cuts the United States foreign aid financial contributions to practically every country and aid program on Earth except for the Palestinian Authority.
Wow, let's check out your report.
According to the document obtained by the Foreign Policy magazine, the proposed financial aid to the West Bank and Gaza has been increased by just under 5%, from $205 million in 2017 to $215 million in 2018. As for the rest of the world, 41 countries' health funding was cut, and the Bureau for Food Security is set to lose 70% of their current funding. Funding for development assistance would be cut completely for at least 77 countries, and $1 billion would be taken from the battle against climate change. The budget needs to pass through Congress before being ratified and is likely to have a lot of opposition, even from conservative lawmakers. The decision to cut aid for all but the Palestinian Authority has not yet been explained, but the move comes just ahead of the May 3rd meeting between Donald Trump and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas in Washington, D.C. Abbas and several other high-level PA officials arrived in Washington on Sunday, and it's not yet clear whether or not the budget proposal is on the list for discussion, but the officials are expected to talk about reviving the stalled Middle East peace process, something Abbas has suggested could be possible under the Trump administration.
Palestinians are on edge more than ever today amid stunning reports that Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas may take unprecedented steps to restore his party's governance over Gaza. Sources in Ramallah say the Palestinian Authority leader is about to issue an ultimatum to Hamas that it either turn over control of the Gaza Strip to the PA, or all funding funneled to the enclave from the West Bank will stop. This would be revolutionary because it would mark a de facto split between the two Palestinian entities ever since Hamas seized control of Gaza in the bloody civil war with Fatah a decade ago. The terrorist organization has collected tens of millions of dollars in taxes, but Hamas mainly invests the money into its own military infrastructure rather than that of running the Gaza territory. Consequently, the Palestinian Authority has continued to foot the bill for Gaza's services, including fuel for Gaza's power station. The plant ran out of oil this past week, leaving the 2 million residents in the coastal enclave with only about 4 hours of electricity a day. So far, Israel has largely accepted, albeit reluctantly, calls from the United States President Donald Trump to hold back on settlement building. But now there are reports that a huge construction project outside Jerusalem is about to be announced, and Israel somehow doesn't see it as conflicting with that agreement.
Local media is reporting that 10,000 new housing units are about to be built over the 1967 lines. The plan's likely to be unveiled on May 23rd as part of Jerusalem Day celebrations on the 50th anniversary of the city's reunification. The new homes are believed to be intended for ultra-Orthodox Jews in East Jerusalem. If it does go ahead, it will be one of the largest housing projects in recent years. Even though Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is anxious to avoid any tensions with Washington, he also remains adamant that all areas of Jerusalem are under Israeli sovereignty. East Jerusalem was legally annexed immediately after the Six-Day War. Last month, the premier stated publicly that even though he's still in the process of reaching an understanding with the White House on West Bank settlement building, the imposition of restrictions on East Jerusalem is off the table. He then reiterated that he will not negotiate a construction freeze on new homes in Jewish neighborhoods of East Jerusalem. Israel considers the unified city as the eternal and indivisible capital of the Jewish people.
On the 2nd of November 1917, the British government issued a formal statement supporting the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in the land of Israel. As the 100th anniversary of that event draws near, Palestinians have been demanding an apology from Britain. Well, now London is issuing another statement that is the last thing the Palestinians wanted to hear.
The government of the United Kingdom is not only vehemently rejecting the notion of apologizing, but says it's proud of the role it played in helping to create modern Israel. Nearly a century ago, on the eve of conquering the then Ottoman territory of Palestine, Britain's Foreign Secretary, Lord Arthur James Balfour, issued the declaration. The text said the founding of the Jewish state on land to which they have such strong historical and religious ties was the right and moral thing to do, particularly following, quote, centuries of persecution. This year, a Palestinian group called the Balfour Apology Campaign has been spearheading anti-British protests, including an online petition. The apology issue would be debated in Parliament if the appeal manages to gain a requisite number of signatures. The PLO has branded the declaration a colonialist project and demanded the British atone for their crime against the Palestinian people. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the campaign is just further proof of Palestinians refusing to accept Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. The British Foreign Office responded with its, quote, "We're not sorry" memo. It added that a lot has happened since 1917, and perhaps the declaration should have also called for the right of self-determination for the non-Jewish communities. However, the statement stressed, the important thing now is to look forward to establishing security and justice for both Israelis and Palestinians through a lasting peace.
Lebanon's Prime Minister Saad al-Khariri is now asking the United Nations to help his country broker a permanent ceasefire with Israel. The move comes amid increasing friction between the Jewish state and Hezbollah. The terror group caused the last war between Israel and Lebanon in 2006 by launching a major deadly cross-border attack. UN Resolution 1701 brought an end to the fighting after 34 days, but Jerusalem occasionally carries out airstrikes to keep advanced weapons from reaching the Iranian-backed terrorists who are stationed just across Israel's northern frontier.
إسرائيل تنتهك قرار 1701 ونحن كحكومة بنرفع الانتهاكات للأمم المتحدة من ناحية ونذكر بضرورة الانتقال لوقف دائم لإطلاق النار لوقف هالتعديات. الجيش اللبناني المرابط هون لحماية السيادة عم بيقوم بدور الوطني على أكمل وجه.
Hezbollah openly defies Resolution 1701, which bans any armed force other than the Lebanese army from territory near the southern border with Israel. Khariri made his comments in the area right after the terror faction staged a so-called media tour there, just one day before the terrorists boasted they held the event to showcase just how ready they are for another war with the Jewish state. Israeli military spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner is dismissing the incident as a Hezbollah attempt to simply pound their chests. Earlier today, a Palestinian terrorist attempted a stabbing attack at Huwara just outside of the Shomron Regional Brigade headquarters in the West Bank. He was shot on sight. The terrorist was looking to stab a soldier, but no Israelis have been reported injured. Though the assailant has been shot, his current condition is not known, and he's been evacuated to the Rabin Medical Center in Petah Tikva. The Israeli Defense Forces are now investigating the incident. This marks the second stabbing attack in as many days. Monday morning on Holocaust Remembrance Day, a female soldier was stabbed near the Kalandia checkpoint just north of Jerusalem. The head of the United Nations UNESCO cultural body is once again contradicting her own agency. Irina Bokova not only shot down UNESCO attempts to erase Jewish ties to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, but factually identified it as the holiest place in Judaism. Bokova says any attempt to deny or conceal any of the Jewish, Christian, or Muslim traditions counters the reasons the Temple Mount was included on UNESCO's World Heritage List in the first place. Last October, Bokova publicly opposed the controversial UNESCO resolution that blatantly ignores Jewish and Christian links to Jerusalem's holy sites. She said the city's heritage is indivisible and that each of its communities has a right to the explicit recognition of its own history. Meanwhile, UNESCO shows no sign of heeding its own director and is set to debate another anti-Israel resolution next week. This one reportedly denies a Jewish connection to the Cave of the Patriarchs in Hebron and Rachel's tomb in Bethlehem. It also apparently condemns Israel for the deaths of children in Gaza. The administration of U.S. President Donald Trump is said to be working furiously behind the scenes to defeat the measure. It's believed the White House has ordered all of its envoys in UNESCO member countries to convey the U.S. wish for a no vote against the motion. Trump feels that the draft is not only one-sided, but also counterproductive to his efforts to revive the peace process between Israel and the Palestinians. All right, there's been another explosion in Syria today, and unnamed regional intelligence sources believe Israel was behind it. 5 strikes reportedly blasted an ammunition depot used by Iranian-backed Hezbollah terrorists near the Damascus airport. An enormous amount of arms are routinely stockpiled at the facility after being unloaded from commercial and military cargo planes sent by Tehran. A Lebanese television station affiliated with Hezbollah says the attack damaged warehouses and fuel tanks but caused no human casualties. An Israeli military spokeswoman has declined to comment, but the country's intelligence minister Israel Katz took time out of his ongoing visit to the United States to make a statement. Katz confirmed that the incident is consistent with Israeli policy to prevent Iran's smuggling of advanced weapons through Syria to Hezbollah. He then reiterated that Israel considers any movement of advanced weaponry to Hezbollah units in Syria as a red line and will take any action necessary to keep them from reaching the terrorists' hands against the Jewish state.
Concern in Israel is mounting over more than just the Fatah-Hamas dispute and the situation in Syria. The Israeli defense establishment is now even worried that the ignition of tensions between the United States and North Korea could launch a war which will carry dramatic implications for the Jewish state.
Starting locally, it's uncertain at this point how Hamas would react to the PA's potential threat to completely cut off the flow of cash. A senior Israeli military source is warning that a total electrical blackout in power could lead to a full-blown humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Hospitals in the Strip are now being operated by generators, but those fuel reserves could run out in only a few more days. The last time the terror group was confronted by internal pressure over its lagging economy in 2014, it sparked a diversionary war against Israel. Turning to Syria, the army official says Israel is keeping such a close eye on the civil war that it was able to monitor last month's sarin gas attack in Idlib in real time. The toxic chemical usage is being widely attributed to the regime of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Meanwhile, the source confirmed that an Israeli strike in Syria last month succeeded in destroying 100 missiles while being shipped to the Hezbollah terror group, while also hitting another target in the Arab Republic. He also warned that if Washington actually goes to war with Pyongyang, Jerusalem should prepare for less U.S. support than usual due to strained resources. Here at home, he added that the security establishment is disappointed that the settlers who were arrested after attacking Israeli soldiers in the West Bank last week have already been released. The officer said that anyone who assaults state forces should face far harsher punishment.
In some lighter news, for the first time in Israel's history, a female judge has just been appointed to serve in the Sharia court system. Hana Khatib was appointed by unanimous election through the Qadis, or the Committee to Elect Sharia Judges.
Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked, who heads the Qadis, said the election of a female Muslim religious judge should have happened a long time ago. Khatib is from the Lower Galilee and has for a long time been a practitioner of family and Sharia law in Israel. Sharia courts were recognized by the State of Israel since the state's founding in 1948 and have been in the region of Israel since long before the British Mandate. The Sharia courts are dedicated to settling personal issues for Israel's Muslim community, from marriage, divorce, and domestic violence cases to religious conversion and inheritance. Knesset member Sulaiman of the Joint Arab List called the appointment an historic step in the Arab feminist movement in Israel, a step that benefits not only Arab Muslim women, but the entire Arab population. Hana Khatib will be sworn in by Israeli President Rivlin in just a few weeks' time.
The first round of the French presidential election saw the emergence of Marine Le Pen as one of the two finalists for the final runoff vote, slated to take place on May 7th. This new political reality is making many in the Jewish community very worried. The far-right leader of the National Front Party captured 21.7% of the vote. Even though she's distanced herself from her father and party founder Jean Le Pen's open anti-Semitism and Holocaust revisionism, many see her as a candidate of hate. She wants to ban the wearing of kippah, Jewish head coverings for men in public, and is also demanding French Jews relinquish their dual nationalities with Israel. Le Pen claims these sacrifices are necessary so similar limitations can be imposed on Muslims. Just a few weeks ago, she said France bore no responsibility for its wartime collaboration with the Nazis to deport Jews to their deaths in concentration camps. Leaders of French Jewry are now calling for widespread support of the other candidate, Emmanuel Macron. The centrist independent candidate took 23.8% of yesterday's vote. The 39-year-old's garnered popularity by vowing tough action against radical Islam while promising law-abiding Muslims that they have nothing to fear. He takes a very hard line against Israeli settlements, but French Jews might be willing to overlook that in efforts to keep Le Pen from taking control of their nation in less than 2 weeks. The left-wing Peace Now group is now claiming that a new illegal outpost is being built in the West Bank, just on the outskirts of Jerusalem. ILTV's Aaron Porce joins us with more details. Aaron?
Thank you, Natasha. Yeah, according to Haaretz News, the police have just stopped the work being done on 7 structures at the new outpost, and they definitely do not have government approval.
The outpost raisers are economically rather than ideologically motivated secular Israelis. The founders told local press that it's become too expensive to live in the Israeli capital of Jerusalem, so they want to move to the West Bank to access more affordable housing. They also say Palestinians are more than welcome to move in. That doesn't make any difference to Peace Now, though, which argues that any continued settlement construction harms the chances for a two-state peace agreement. But even though the new residents don't have building permits, it's reportedly difficult to evict them, because general construction in the area was previously authorized by the civil administration. This is the first so-called infraction since the Israeli government curtailed settlement building as a goodwill gesture to United States President Donald Trump. There's been no immediate reaction from the government since all these reports came out yesterday on the Jewish Sabbath.
The nation of Israel is marking Holocaust Remembrance Day in an annual tribute to the 6 million Jews who were murdered during the Second World War. This morning began with a 2-minute siren that rang out across the country at 10 o'clock and paralyzed all activity. Now, here's something I'll bet you've never heard of before. More and more of Israel's emergency rescue teams are now saving lives while riding electric bicycles. Yes, you heard that right. These modern-day superheroes fight death by cycling to emergency scenes. Their bikes swerve, swoop, and zoom into narrow areas like alleys, promenades, and open markets that are impossible for ambulances to reach. 1,000 volunteers known as the Life Riders are equipped with their own medical kits and resuscitation equipment. The cycling squad's administering of immediate treatment saves precious seconds, which is sometimes all it takes to make the difference between the life and death for the patients. The Israeli initiative is the first time electric bike riders have ever been deployed as first responders on an organized basis anywhere in the world. And it certainly makes sense, doesn't it?
Now, with all the incredible things that Israel has to offer, it is no wonder that people from all over the world find all sorts of reasons to want to move here. But for some, their reasons could shock the rest of us. 31-year-old British native James Hirschfield made Aliyah 2 years ago, but his reasons for coming and what he left behind are more than most could imagine. Hirschfield had both a successful career as a model and as a pro golf course coach in the United States. But one day, seemingly at the drop of a hat, he realized he just had to move to Israel. Speaking with the Jerusalem Post, he said, quote, "At the time, modeling was exciting, something fresh, a little bit different. If perhaps something didn't kind of start a fire in my heart that made me come to Israel, there's a chance I might have carried on modeling," end quote. What was it that started the fire? Apparently, serving in the IDF. He said, quote, "I decided I couldn't live outside of Israel while there are 18, 19, and 20-year-olds protecting and giving their lives to defend the country that if something were to happen, me and my family would go to," end quote. Unfortunately, the IDF didn't share his passion. Making Aliyah at the age of 29, he said he received no after no after no from the army. But finally, after 2 whole years of fighting with the defense authorities, he is donning his uniform and began basic training, leaving his recent interview saying, quote, "I hope that I'll be able to inspire people in Israel and all around the world to know what Israel stands for and how important it is to be here, and that without an army here, there might not be a country at all." Well, I think I can speak on behalf of many when I say to you, James, mission accomplished.
Now get ready for this emotional video. 2 sisters have just won the Inspired by Israel contest with their poetic video entry explaining why they immigrated to the Jewish state. The pair came with their mother and 2 brothers after the death of their father in New Jersey. 12th grade high school student Batsheva Shachanovitz is heard narrating words written by her sister Sivan Felder. The first prize winners were selected by the public in the Israel Video Network contest and were awarded $8,000. Let's listen to their story, but I have to warn you, it's so poignant that you'd better get out some tissues.
"5 years ago, my family made Aliyah. When people ask me why we uprooted our entire life and came to live in Israel, when they ask me why we traveled halfway across the world to come live in a country where we barely speak the language, when they ask me why we choose to live in a place so scarred and flawed and messy instead of somewhere easy or simple, how do I explain? How do I explain that Israel is my home and that home is never simple? But this home is the single promise of a million fractured voices bound together by a shared dream and sheer willpower. This is a home built on the stubborn backs of survivors who swore that their children would never feel alone or afraid. Not so long ago, these mountains were moved by young men and women who refused to take no for an answer, even when the rest of the world said it's impossible. How do I explain that this place is my home? These people are my family. And it doesn't matter who I am or where I come from. When I come here, they will always take me in. When I look at my country, I see her cracks and her flaws, but her scars are merely a reminder of the wars she has fought to be here. In the chaos of a world that has forgotten its humanity, she stands as a reminder of the power of hope. Here, I will always be free to be who I am, to love who I want, to say what I think. And that's why, when it's my turn, I will proudly stand and do whatever it takes to protect this home. I will be the unbreakable link between dreams and reality, so that my children will always know that no matter where they might wander or what they might become, they will always have a place to call their own.
That's it for this week's Roundup. Tune in next Friday for our next episode of ILTV's Weekly Review. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from Tel Aviv.